Okay, the first thing I want to show you is how to store a value to x. Notice in the second row, second column is the x button. If I click the x button and then press enter, it'll dump it out. Currently, there's a 10 in x. So if I want to put a 4 in x, I would say 4, and then I'd use this button in the first column, second to the last row that says STO, stands for store. I would store that to x. And then you can see that the value of 4 will be stored in x. Okay, that's the first step. Second step is if we go to y equals, notice it's y1, y2, y3, etc. If I write an equation like 5x minus 2 and then get out of it by second quitting, remember the value stored in x right now is 4. Well, if we go here and by hand, 4 times 5 is 20, 20 minus 2 is 18. So we have an equation for y1, we have a value stored in x, so how do we get the value for y1 printed on the screen? Well, you could go to vars. Remember, it's the third row, fourth column, vars. We move over to yvars. We pick function vars, and we pick the first one. Now, when we dump it, we should have 5 times 4 minus 2, or 18. That's what we have. So notice that I had an equation in y1. I put 4 in x using 4 store to x. And to get the value of y to come out, I pressed vars, yvars, function vars, y1. I could have a y2 in here, which just says, let's just make it 10 times x. Okay, in that case, the value of y1 would be 18, the value of y2 would be 40. Let's see if that's the case. We'll clear it off. We'll say, what is the value of y1? And what is the value of y2? Whoops, that's a mistake. So we say, what is the value of y2? And that's 40. So that's how that works. Okay, now that we know how to set a function in y1, assign a value to x, and then determine the value of y that's produced, let's see how we can produce a set of values of x and see what set of values of y result. For instance, if I have the equation y equals 5x minus 2, let's say that I wanted to try an x value of negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. How could I do that very, very quickly? Well, the secret is you make a list. So if I go to the Stat menu and then select the first item, Edit, if I go up here into the L1 and press Clear, you can clear all the values of L1. I'll go ahead and do that for L2 because I'll be using that in a moment. So all the values of L1 and L2 have been erased. Now I'll go ahead and put a negative 2, a negative 1, a 0, a 1, and a 2. Those are the values in L1. You can confirm that by saying second 1, which throws up L1 on the screen, press enter, and there are your values. Now, if you go to y equals and you want to try all these values one at a time, instead of x, replace it with list 1. Then, if you want to find out the values that result, press vars, yvars, function vars, y1, and you'll see a list. So that was when it was negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. That's not very convenient for reading because it's not next to the values that produced it. So we can go to the Stat menu, Edit, and we can see that if we put the results right next to it, it'd be very convenient. So what we can do is take this y1, which you can access by saying second entry, and then store it to the second list. So second L2. When you press enter, it stores those values into list 2. You can view them via the Stat menu by saying, geez, when I put in a negative 2 for x, I get a negative 12 for y. When I put in a negative 1 for x, I get a negative 7 for y, etc. And that's how that works.